Welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Port Royal Gaming, and this is the Festival of Star Wars. We're celebrating that across Port Royal Network for the next couple of weeks, obviously because coming up in just a few weeks' time is May the 4th, Be With You Day, Star Wars Day. So we thought, why not celebrate this great franchise? So we're going to do a rankings list here today. And what we're going to be doing is ranking the Star Wars media, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
The shows, the animated series, where we think we would put them on this list. So what we're going to try and do is, I guess, try to come up with an agreement on how we would present this on this scale. So S, A, B, C, D. There are some properties on here which we won't be able to rank because we haven't seen them, unfortunately, but that's just how it goes. So let's just kick things off.
Yep.
And we're kicking off in a big way. Looks like it's all in order
Of release, and then it goes by the
Well, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do the order of release, or do you want to do it in a different order?
that order that they currently have it in looks pretty good because we go original trilogy, prequel, sequels, spin-offs, and then the cartoons and
And then the
live
Disney
action.
era.
Yeah.
Alright. Episode 4, A New Hope.
Episode 4. Up until pretty recently, I would have put this straight into A tier and said, "Yep, good movie." When you watch it nowadays, the pacing's a little slow, especially towards the beginning. But honestly, the more I watch it nowadays, I think it's just as classic Star Wars that you can get. I'd be more inclined to put this in the S tier nowadays, New Hope.
Yeah, I think this is well, it's cliche to say that this is the one that started the franchise. This is what sets what Star Wars is all about, but I'm in agreement to go straight to the S. This is
Like the finale of the trench run, it's not as spectacular as what some of the other movies would later become, but it's just got like the perfect amount of tension and build up, and the payoff is just. I think it's S tier material.
and then you also got to remember this is 1977. This movie broke grounds for what blockbusters should be, so S tier I think are deserving. Moving on to The Empire Strikes Back, and I think that, in my opinion, that would also live in the S tier because it did something that sequels didn't really do back in those days. It went dark. It took their story in a different direction. It put the heroes into like a corner to back out of, which was never really seen back, when it came to big blockbuster movies. So that also changed the scene for Hollywood as well. And then you can argue also that some of the timeline of the film and all that doesn't really line up, or if you really dig right into it. But for what it is, I think The Empire Strikes Back took our beloved heroes from Star Wars, and really built on their characters, and I think it built on everything that the first film set up. What do you think about The Empire Strikes Back?
Well, it introduced Yoda.
Yep.
Introduced Lando Calrissian, two of the most classic characters from the original trilogy.
And arguably also introduced the most iconic piece of music in Star Wars history, film history. Of course, the Imperial theme I'm speaking of.
Yep.
It's been used in so much other media to signal villains that it broke new ground.
It's I think also it's worth noting that this film explored sort of the lore and the sort of the intricacies of like the Force in a really awesome way with all of Yoda's sort of scenes. So it fleshed out basically what was established even more, and I think in a really good way improved upon the first film. And everything else you said, there's not really much else that hasn't been said about this movie.
It basically, when movies nowadays, when they go to make a sequel, they base their template off The Empire Strikes Back. So that just says a lot about that film. Okay, Return of the Jedi.
I think I'll speak for both of us when we say our favourite film in the saga. It's been my favourite film for as long as I've been a Star Wars fan.
I'm not really close to that, but that's... Anyway, sorry, we're just looking at it.
But here's what I'm going to say about it. I sort of look at the films in two different ways. I look at it based on how good of a movie I really think it is, and also by how much I enjoy it. If I go by how much I enjoy it, it's straight in the S tier. But when I sort of critically think about it, it does have a few more, I don't want to say problems or issues, but some sort of things that I think keep it a slight step down from Empire and A New Hope. The main thing being probably the Ewoks. I know it's some people love them, some people hate them. I've also had people bring up issues with, say, the whole first act of the film just feels like it's from a completely different movie. It feels like its own story. Before we kick everything off, Han Solo didn't really do much in this movie at all either. But everything else that they do hit right, the ending, Luke, Vader, the Emperor, all that's just perfect. But so yeah, I think I'll give you what I've said, and I'll give you the floor on this one.
Yeah, I agree. I see Return of the Jedi as, like I said, my favourite film, possibly of all the Star Wars films. I think, yeah, that's for me. Yeah, I just think that the problem is for Return of the Jedi is that The Empire Strikes Back was so perfect that there's no way that you could follow on from that and get higher than The Empire Strikes Back, and it had huge shoes to fill, so to speak. So that's unfortunate for it. It's not its problems, but it did have its problems. I think, like you said, the introduction of the Ewoks were very controversial. For them to overcome, the mighty of the Galactic Empire. George Lucas has said it's about underdogs rising up, and it's not about, the things that you have, like the heart and all, which is
A good
good
message,
and all that. That's a good message to send. But when you really think about it, like, come on,
Sticks
little
and
teddy
stones
bears.
and branches, tree branches.
They did have the help of the rebels, but that's another thing that I don't understand is it's meant to be this huge garrison of Imperials on there that gets my little band of rebels. It just doesn't make sense. I feel.
I will say too, it's not the film's fault because it never released in that way, but the special editions brought in Jedi rocks, and I can never forgive it for that.
Well, that's another thing we need to consider as well. We're rating this on the editions that we know, which have always been the special editions, really, because that's the ones we grew up on.
They've never gone back on the edits after that. To this day, they're still tweaking it.
Yep.
You can find changes in the Disney Plus releases here and there. So yeah.
So purists will say, well, this is not the original, but for us growing up, this is the Return of the Jedi that we knew. And then the Blu-ray edition came out, and Vader said no when he threw Emperor over the.
Do you read that one right there?
Over the banner. I don't know if you can see that, but on that edition there. Just grab it.
The one with old Jake Lloyd on
This
the front.
one, ever since this release,
2011 I think that came out. I remember getting that back then.
Awesome colour though.
Yeah.
It definitely beats the one that it has now. But he had a no to one of my favourites. Possibly it was my most favourite scene out of the entire Star Wars saga, the redemption of Vader, the return of the Jedi, Anakin. Sound like Tyrion. But I don't know, the voice over just, I cringe when I hear it now. It's like there's no need it didn't need to be added.
And based on the latest version of the film, it seems like it's here to stay.
Yeah, it's not going away. That's why I like to watch. If I was to watch that film, I'll watch it on this thing here, that trilogy then, DVD.
Yeah, it's definitely the most controversial film. Even I want to bring up Hayden Christensen and Sebastian Shaw. The whole ordeal with the Anakin goes to. When I was a kid, it never bothered me. As a man, I think I preferred seeing Anakin there. But I can see both sides to it now, and I mean personally, it doesn't really bother me anymore. But I can understand why people are on either side of it.
Yeah, you understand the arguments both ways. I'm sure I saw somewhere George say that that's the point that is Anakin's return to. That's his redemption. That's why he appears as that. But then, yeah, the other side is like, well, he redeemed himself as Vader, as the old man. So, but anyway, Return of the Jedi. See, if we just go off enjoyment, I put it up there. But
yeah,
I think when you bring in the pros and the cons, if we look at it critically, if we look at the edits, if we look at Jedi Rocks, I think unfortunately Return of the Jedi, for what we're doing here today, it's going to get knocked off the top. And where would it fall, do you think?
I still think it goes A tier.
A tier?
The
Happy with that.
I think the lows that keep it from S tier are outweighed by the highs to put it any lower than A.
Yep. And one of the, speaking of the changes, I mean, you look at the older fans with the end song.
Oh yeah.
Give me Victory Celebration any day.
Yep.
Let's moving on. Start a war. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Here comes the controversial take that I was gonna say. I think that The Phantom Menace is my favourite prequel. I'm gonna say it. I don't know what it is about that movie, but every time I do like a Star Wars watch through, I'm always excited to watch The Phantom Menace. I don't know what it is about it.
There's something about The Phantom Menace, like I was still too young to remember when this movie was coming out. I remember watching it in the cinema when it was released. And I was a Star Wars fan as a child, but I don't remember the hype around that this movie would have had. I would imagine this to be...
would have been probably the most amazing thing to
I mean,
be on
people...
the ride for.
Back in 1999, you think about it, people paid for movie tickets to go watch other movies just to watch the trailer to this film.
And then leave, yeah.
And then leave. Nowadays you just watch it on YouTube. But I imagine the hype for Episode 1 to be... Well, the MCU is probably the biggest blockbuster franchise right now.
I imagine...
So, Infinity War, I guess.
Infinity War and Endgame hype.
Endgame hype. That level of excitement.
Possibly even
Leading
higher
up to
from
this.
the stuff that we saw.
I'd probably say Infinity War, because that was the first time everyone came together and everyone... This was when Thanos
That's
was
right,
coming
yeah.
in, so... I reckon the hype would be similar to that. As for the actual movie...
Yes. Many glaring problems.
Many.
A couple of them being just straight up characters from the film.
I suppose let's just go through the pros and cons, I guess, of the film. Can we start with the cons?
We start with the cons because they're probably the easiest to identify.
So, the cons are...
I think for starters, this film doesn't have a main character.
Mm.
Can you name the main character of The Phantom Menace?
Too much of an ensemble.
It can't be Anakin. He's not in the film for another, from at least an hour and a bit. Obi-Wan's missing from the film for a solid 45 minutes. Qui-Gon he doesn't act as a main character. He sort of acts as like a guide to what would be the main character.
Yeah, he's like the mentor role, but of no one. He's a mentor to us watching the film, what it is. He's there to tell us what's going to happen and to tell us how to think during watching it.
It's not Amidala. She's
Amidala is in her robot voice.
And it's not Jar Jar Binks.
No, and that's the one thing. This movie introduced us to Jar Jar Binks. That's a con for me.
So yeah, it's kind of like everything kind of just happens and you just watch it happen, but there's no one to sort of take you with it.
Darth Maul, one of the coolest Sith characters in all of the franchises, just gets chopped in half.
He gets chopped in half after delivering 2 lines of dialogue.
2 lines of dialogue. After looking so menacing, the lead up thinking, oh, who is this guy? I don't know if we can count this as a con, but I remember, and I don't remember watching this back when in '99, but they gave away the double-bladed saber in the trailer.
They did.
I'm thinking that would
If
have
you
been
watch,
that would have been so cool if you were watching this movie in the cinema, and he takes the hood off and activates the double saber. I think that would have been cool, but I guess please sell.
It's sort of in the middle of the road. Some people love the pod race. I'm on that side. Some people think that it goes for too long.
It was actually cut down too. There is the extended cut on you can find in the special features in none of the movies. I for one, I enjoyed the pod race. I think that's something different for Star Wars, a racing scene.
Yeah. I actually caught this movie in the cinemas because when the Phantom Menace 3D came out, shout outs if you remember that whole project that got canned, where we were going to get the trilogy in 3D.
I'm pretty sure we're going to get the saga actually.
Yeah. I saw that in the cinemas and the pod race was really cool to see in 3D. I don't know how cool I'd find it nowadays because the 3D fad completely died.
Yeah. 3D
But we mentioned Jar Jar. The CG, some of it's actually like aged surprisingly well, but a lot of it also hasn't.
Jar Jar for one. He
Yep.
sticks out like a sore thumb.
Can we just mention like just the
Boss
Gungans
Nass.
in general, Boss Nass? Which I don't hate them, but you have to acknowledge that it's a bit silly. Same with
And
we haven't even mentioned Anakin yet.
yeah, I was just going to say this is
No
offense to
No offense to Jake Lloyd at all. He didn't deserve any of the backlash he got. That was just the rage of the nerds at the time, which you still see the same stuff happening today. But
I think the way I look at it is if the guy that ultimately picked him is George, and as much as George Lucas is like almost our god, he directed these prequels, so he had full control over everything for the prequels, and as much as George likes to think, I feel that he's not the best director.
No.
Because it's the point that he wrote everything, he handpicked everything, and he had yes people around him.
Rick McCallum.
So nobody's pulling him up on any. No one's saying George. I don't think that's a good idea. It's yeah, great. Let's go with that.
There's of course that infamous scene from the making of documentary where they all watch the film for the first time in a private screening, and everyone can just be seen sitting like this. It's like, I think it may have gone a bit too far in a few places, but we can fix it in post. That's some of the bad, anyways. Let's try and talk about some of the good of this film.
And just one more thing about the dialogue. I think if somebody, like I said, George did everything himself, but if he had 2 or 3 people, screenwriters, just go through the script and just clean it up a bit.
That's going to be a recurring factor for the next couple of films.
So we'll say that's for these films there. But pros, some of the good things of episode 1.
The first thing I want to mention is came with one of the most iconic Star Wars songs that's still used to this day. It was used everywhere in video games. Of course, talking about Duel of the Fates.
Almost was the title for episode 9, had Colin Trevorrow stayed on.
Mm-hmm.
And just talk about the music in general. So the
Yeah.
Duel of the Fates, the Trade Federation March, Anakin's theme.
I was a big fan of Anakin's theme.
It was new themes for Star Wars, like, and that's another pros, that it gave us a new look at Star Wars. Like, we heard about the Jedi and that, so we're actually seeing the Jedi at their prime. So everything moves faster. The lightsaber fights, which I'm sure we can get onto that. But the lightsaber fight and the duel in this movie in particular
Mm-hmm.
is
I think out of all the lightsaber fights out of the prequels, I'd probably think Darth Maul has to be my favourite.
Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi.
Yeah, I'll get because there is another one coming up in the next couple of movies that's worth noting, but I still think I'd take that one over this one.
Could be another tier list on its own, the battles and those duels.
Although mentioning that and bringing up that scene, I do have to bring up one more negative with this film that's just come back to my mind. The final act of the film is split across 4 different scenes. They tried to cram 4 different things at once. You have the lightsaber battle, you have the storming of the Naboo Palace, the space battle with Anakin, and of the Gungan and the droids.
That's right. 4 things happening at once. For the first of the trilogy, I mean, it worked well in Return of the Jedi because it was the building up for this. You know that there was going to be that, but to come straight out of the gate swinging,
it was ambitious.
Was a big task. It's a bit frantic, but like with 4 things happening at the same time, I think the storming of the palace is probably the most forgettable. Because everything else that was happening was a bit more exciting. But the storming of the palace was the most crucial one.
But yeah, that was just, I needed to bring that up. But back to the positive. This movie actually has a lot more practical sort of effects and stuff in it than the prequels tend to get associated with having. And it sort of still does have that look, sort of classic Star Wars look to it in that way. Like they actually went out and filmed on set on Tatooine, out in the what's the name of it? Yeah. Out there, a lot of the locations actually do look pretty good. I thought Coruscant is a great location.
Coruscant for 1999 film, it looked amazing. And that leads back to what we were saying before. This episode 1 brought so much new Star Wars thing. Everything's so clean. This is the Republic era. New music, new ships, and all the new characters. Because we'll talk about it when we get to the sequel trilogy, but the sequel trilogy seems to be heavy reliant on the original trilogy. But anyway, it was episode 1.
I think what I'll say.
One of the positives I was going to say about we've got Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. I think
yes,
he's a positive, and Ewan McGregor, even though he's sort of at times just there.
You can see they made the right choice.
Yeah, that's Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, Liam Neeson. Good casting choices there.
And yeah, now that you did mention him, Qui-Gon Jinn was my favourite Jedi as a kid. So there's that too. I wonder if that's also why episode 1 was always a favourite one.
He's pretty good. I should bring my pocket of him.
I think to end what we're saying about episode 1, it's also too, I feel like it actually sort of works as just a standalone movie. It's got a big like celebratory ending, and like just as a standalone film, it almost kind of works that way, but at the same time it doesn't, because we know there's more films to come yet.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. If you know nothing about Star Wars and you watched episode 1, and well, it gives away that it's called episode 1, but if you watched it and watched the film, you'd probably think, oh, that's a good movie, not knowing that there's more to come. But so, as far as the scale lands,
feel like we talked a lot of negative to put it up.
But with that said, I'm leaning more towards the B category.
That's also what I was gonna say. I was gonna say we've talked a lot of negative to put it anywhere higher than B, but that's what I was feeling, because my enjoyment factor of the film, I'm also taking in.
It's fun. I mean, it's yeah. I'm happy to rest in the B category for episode 1. It's definitely not the weakest of the prequels. Now, episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, what I said for episode 1 about George not being the director that he may think he is, yeah, somebody definitely needed to run over the script for episode 2. They needed someone to
take
clean it up.
The script book from him.
Someone needed to say, George, what do you want to tell? Do this, and then go and write the script for him.
Just imagine if Spielberg did take the director's role for the prequels.
Yeah.
But episode 2.
We'll start with the pros for episode 2.
It introduced the clones, if you're a fan of the clones.
Tamora Morrison as Jango Fett.
Yep. That's...
And Jango Fett.
We got Darth Tyrannus, Count Dooku.
Yes, Christopher Lee as Count Dooku.
That's a very big positive.
That's positive. I've got his lightsaber.
Somewhere there.
Another one. We just get stumped.
Across the Stars is a good song.
Yeah, the music. And I guess we can just say that Star Wars music for the prequels definitely turned it up a notch.
Yeah.
The Republic March in episode 2.
I've actually watched a YouTube video that ranked all the films based just on their music alone, and he placed episode 2 at number 1. So
Across the Stars and that galactic.
I only found it out by watching that video, that in the scene where Yoda steps up to fight Dooku, which is something I guess we'll talk about with this film as well. It actually plays sort of an epic like orchestral version of his theme as he pulls his lightsaber out. I never noticed it before.
Oh, I have to watch that.
Yeah. So the music's good.
What do you think of the Yoda lightsaber?
See, when you're a kid and you watch it, you don't really care.
No.
You probably think it's funny, maybe.
Thought it was hyped, actually.
Yeah, like you think like, whoa, Yoda, he's doing flips and stuff. Like, I want to play as him in Lego Star Wars now. But looking at it now,
yeah, that doesn't really fit his character.
It doesn't fit his character, but at the same time, it's like, if you never did do a scene like that, then it would just beg the question, like, what would Yoda fighting with a lightsaber look like?
Yeah.
It's just kind of something they just had to do.
Yeah, and then that just goes back to, like, yeah, the story, the way that George wrote is, it's going to lead to Yoda fighting. And another thing, I talked about the double saber reveal. That was given away in the trailer. The trailer of episode 2, which shows Yoda doing the camera spin and the... Imagine if, that wasn't handed out for free in the trailer.
What other positives can we think of?
The planet, so Kamino. I find very fascinating.
Kamino is probably my favourite Star Wars planet.
It's what do you imagine, like the classic sci-fi alien world, with the look of the Kaminoans.
Yep.
The inside of their buildings, outside of like a watery world. So I think that's a positive. Geonosis is just like
Geonosis is
not a desert.
There are certain fans, or I don't want to say certain fans, but there are some people who seem to think that everything on Geonosis is just like peak Star Wars. But I can't say I see it that way.
They did go back to Tatooine.
Yep.
Introduction to the Lars family.
It plants the seeds, but when I say plant, I mean it aggressively digs a hole in the ground and forces the seeds in the ground
Yeah.
for Anakin's dark side turn. I don't know if I can call that a positive actually.
I mean, that pretty much was his dark side turn. Pretty. I've got to know how
it came pretty
let
quickly.
go you need to be.
Are there any other positives we can think of right now for this film?
No, I'm trying to think of the characters. Mace was alright.
Certainly not Dexter Jetster in his 50s diner.
Yeah, that's bad CGI. We'll get to that soon. I did like the whole idea though of the clone, the mystery behind the clone, and having Obi-Wan sort of be the sort of detective.
Yes, Obi-Wan was good in this movie.
But when you think about the backstory of the clones,
it gets very
it's like, huh? So an old Jedi Council member 10 years ago, during episode 1, ordered a clone army in secret. And now that they're there ready to go, and then the Jedi Council just gonna accept them. Yeah,
no questions asked about it. It's like, yeah.
And then a clone army, like, I suppose that's the only way I could explain. But then by the time I don't know. By the time it's meant to get to the original trilogy, they're not clones anymore. I thought of it as that's the way that they can explain why there's so many stormtroopers. But by the time we get to New Hope, it's their own canon.
They were supposedly phased out.
So I don't understand.
Do you think with the amount of clones they made that, you'd see some of them, but apparently not.
No. Negatives.
Can we say the whole opening act of the film?
Opening act.
With
the assassination.
Padme's assassination attempt.
I'm just going to even say that scene of the attempt itself is just.
There are so many backwards logic moments throughout that entire scene. Like, it's been said a million times when people talk about this scene, but it's Jango Fett's assignment to assassinate her. So he hires Zam Wessel to do it for him, who then sends a droid which plants
a slug. And basically the Jedi foil the plan. Despite all the hoops that they jump through for that plan, they still end up finding Jango. After they kill the slug, right, the droid is out by the window. They've established that Anakin's very brash and wants to do all he can to protect Padme. So they have Obi-Wan be the one to jump out the window without thinking to catch the droid. The one that says, stop, think, use the Force.
Literally 5 minutes
when
after
they land on the ground. You went in there to hide, not to run.
Also,
yeah.
Why does Dexter Jetster know what the poison dart is from? Why does he know about Camino?
Just, the random diner that everyone goes to for his lattes. And then
we haven't even touched on probably the worst part of this film. The romance.
I wouldn't call it a romance. The stalking. I don't know what to. It's definitely not romance. The whole Anakin Padme storyline is just, like I said, George needed someone to run over the script.
Yeah.
And fix all that.
This is not Hayden Christensen's fault. This is not Natalie Portman's fault.
No. And I hate to be bashing on George a lot here, but you see a lot of the documentaries, the behind the scenes, his instructions to a lot of these prequels is to do it again, but do it faster, do it better,
more intensity,
more intense. And he actually did that for episode 4 as well. But what kind of directing is that? Episode 2. And I just didn't like the whole in-your-face foreshadowing at the end scene when the Clone War begins, which I don't know why it doesn't really explain why it's called the Clone Wars, was because there's a lot of clones in it, but
Yeah, it's a weird
just a
thing.
weird name, like it's just, I don't know what it is.
If it was never name dropped in A New Hope, it wouldn't be called that.
No.
Basically.
The whole foreshadowing when Palpatine's looking over all the clones and they're just straight up playing the Imperial March, like what? It's been said that it's foreshadowing the turn, but yeah, I don't know, it's just too in your face, really.
Yeah, this is where the end of the film is where the Sidious's plan sort of starts to get a bit what's going on here.
And I guess we could pick that up just by looking at it. We don't need the Imperial March to be playing. I would have preferred that piece of music not to show up until then, but anyway. Let's just go ahead and put this.
Let's just put it there so we can stop talking about this movie. I mean, we're trashing it a lot here, but I'll still happily watch it. It's still a Star Wars film.
It's still Star Wars. The Geonosis battle, that was pretty cool to watch.
It still has some fun moments.
The pro, I'm gonna put the Obi-Wan Jango fight, seeing fist to fist combat with the Jedi. That was pretty. It didn't last as long as it could have been, and the choreography of the fight wasn't the best, but it was still for what it is. I thought that was cool to see with little Boba. So, how to C or D?
D. Belongs in D, unfortunately.
Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith.
Possibly, well, actually, it is the most critically acclaimed of the 3.
Yep.
The most one that got the most love. So yeah, let's just go through episode 3. I guess we can just break it up. So the start of the film, it just launches straight into the
Battle over Coruscant.
Battle of Coruscant, which is so the end of the last one was the very beginning of the Clone Wars. So we're gonna jump right into the end of the Clone Wars. We introduced to Grievous. We saw a bit of that Anakin Obi-Wan, more of the brother sort of relationship they had in the first opening of the movie, which ended in Anakin just cutting off Dooku's head.
Yep. It's it feels like a lot more important things happen in this film. It makes it feel like a much better overall story and movie. It there are times when in between sort of all the big stuff happening where it can sort of feel a bit slow, but once it gets going for the first portion of the film and the end of the film, I think it's a pretty solid movie.
Added more iconic music to this saga.
Yep.
Battle of the Heroes in particular. I think we can spend a bit of time in the finale of this movie as well, but let's just work our way to that. I like the idea of each Jedi getting sent on missions. I just didn't understand the Palpatine-Anakin relationship. It was borderline... well, what's the word to use here? Creepy. Inappropriate, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Because, it wasn't really hinted at in Attack of the Clones, really. It was just all of a sudden they're best friends in this movie. The whole thing about Anakin being on the council, but he's not a master, but he wants to be a master. It's just like, what?
It's like, why do you care?
Yeah, you're on the council, so...
You're the chosen one.
Yeah.
It'll come.
And I guess I did like the when Mace and Yoda were starting to question whether is he the chosen one or picked wrong, they're starting to doubt him. I thought that was an interesting aspect to the movie.
I suppose we should have brought that up in Phantom Menace. It introduced the whole idea of the prophecy.
The prophecy,
which is also very controversial.
Yeah, that's the prophecy is what the prequels are about. Which retroactively made what the original trilogy is about. The prophecy of Darth Vader, Anakin.
Yep. Which also, kind of affects Return of the Jedi.
Which affects Return of the Jedi, which makes sense for the title, Return of the Jedi. But Revenge of the Sith. What about some of the new worlds that we see? The Utapau, which is interesting, I guess.
Mustafar
was
a cool planet.
Seeing a space battle above Coruscant was cool.
Massive one too. That's for 2005, where CG was it was getting there, but not really on that scale. I don't feel at that point.
No, I mean, when you look at the evolution of Coruscant in particular for these three movies, you can see by the time episode 3 comes around that they've really turned it up a notch for Coruscant, the amount of little things they've put into the skyline and things like that.
Yep.
So where were we? The opening space battle. I think it would have been cool to see, like, if it wasn't in space, it was in the skies in between the Coruscant towers. That would look cool. Kashyyyk, we saw Kashyyyk.
Kashyyyk, I'm trying to think what they've introduced another planet.
It wasn't, it was just basically a background. I think it was an excuse to get Yoda off Coruscant and away from the temple.
And with a slightly shoehorned Chewbacca cameo.
Yeah, Chewie. I mean, it's Chewie. We love Chewie. The idea, you can see, this is where Anakin really starts to slide to the dark side, and it's because of Padme. And I think that's probably one of the strongest points of the prequels. Actually, is the reason why Anakin does what he's doing, is because he has this love. Padme's giving birth to his children. Does he know he has twins? No, he doesn't.
No.
That he's giving birth to his child, and that he'll do anything to save her because he's having these nightmares.
Yeah, and it all sort of calls back to the relationship with his mother.
And it all calls back to that. So I think that's one of the strongest things for the prequels. Is that dynamic there for Anakin?
Yeah.
Makes him this tragedy, which is what George always described it. Is there any other things from Revenge of the Sith that you think are good?
Well, we can
before
bring up
we get to the finale.
Yeah. I think the whole urgency that you get once everything begins to unfold in the final act does create some really good drama. It takes the movie to another level at that end there. But I think we've pretty much covered everything except for
So basically everything that happens after Order 66 is given really starts to turn into high gear, I feel.
Yep.
And then you get one thing also is, we talked about the clones last time, but in episode 3 we actually got introduced to Commander Cody, who, still wasn't much of a character, but
it's just a clone with now he has a name.
he's got a name and he's done a few more things, has a few more lines, so you get that sort of, the scene when Obi-Wan is getting briefed by Cody on the ship, and they're sort of having that little banter saying, don't kill everybody before I get there. I think that was cool to see that, they're having fun, I guess.
I think one more thing I should bring up the whole point where when Anakin sort of begins to catch on to the fact that Palpatine's not what he seems, and he goes to Mace Windu to tell him, I think he's a Sith Lord. It's something that they had sensed, that they think there may be a Sith Lord. So the fact that Anakin straight up tells him that he thinks he's a Sith Lord,
point blank, like, I think he's a Sith Lord,
and they just walk it off. They say, all right, we must take action, and he just takes a couple of Jedi with him and aggressively confronts him.
But then he also says when he leaves, if what you told me is true, you've gained my trust. So he didn't even believe him.
And yeah, it's just like.
And then I do see a lot of commentary made that the Jedi, for what they were back in the Republic times, were quite arrogant.
Yes, that does go in the favour of the film. I think that's a good.
That comes in, but then I don't know if that originated as like fan theories or if that's
intended canon.
Intended to be, that's what it is. But when you think of it that way, then that
it does, yeah.
Fit the glove, so to speak. So Mace is thinking, okay, I'm going to take a few of the council members. We're going to be stronger than him. We're going to do it ourselves, which ultimately backfires within 3 waves of Palpatine's sword.
There's the whole idea that, you know, Obi-Wan watches a like a hologram recording of what happened and Anakin bowing down to Palpatine. It's like, does any of that stuff, any of like the Jedi being killed or the stuff that's happening, they never think to like maybe, I don't know, take that and use that footage against him or something? But that's just that's just thinking.
Yeah, it's just so the lightsaber fight now,
yes,
I think is one of the, it's right up there in terms of this entire Star Wars franchise. That's the lightsaber fight that people waited years to see. Like the moment that Anakin and Obi-Wan turn on each other, and when Obi-Wan's going to confront him,
it's literally on the poster for the film. So
it's all built up to that fight. So I guess you would have had high expectations going into it, and I believe they really delivered. The soundtrack behind the choreography of the fight. These 2 Jedis at their prime, so we would expect nothing less. I will say there are a few scenes in there that you can tell that have been chopped up. There's a scene when they're on top of the table in the meeting room, and the cuts in between. The lightsaber changes many times. So you can see it's definitely been chopped up a few times here and there. What do you make of the lightsaber?
It's
I am a fan of it. Happening at the same time.
I am a fan of it. I do know there's a lot of people who, looking at it nowadays, seem to think that the prequel fights are a bit too over choreographed, but I can look at it and see it's Star Wars. It's I think it's cool. It's whatever. It's a really long fight. I don't remember what the exact runtime is, but a lot of the end act is literally all just the fight, and it leads up to the moment that we see where Anakin becomes scarred and burned, and I think it's just it's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, it's 2 Jedis at the prime of their Jedi abilities or whatever. So they're trained in lightsaber combat. So I think the way that they did it makes sense, and I think it was really good. Which then leads, like you said, to Vader, and also leads to us showing the creation of Vader and then the birth of the twins.
Yes, it gets everyone that is around for the original trilogy. It shuffles them into their places.
Yeah, puts them all in standby for 19 years before episode 4 comes along, and the closing shot of Revenge of the Sith of a baby Luke being held by the Lars randomly
They
on
get
Tatooine.
they get the the Force theme.
They get the Force theme, which sort of diminishes the Luke moment when he's overlooking the thing, because like if you watch this in order, you think, oh, that happened last movie, but yeah, for what it was. So Revenge of the Sith.
It is highly regarded in terms of the prequels. I used to think that I'd put this maybe around the A tier, but I'm kind of thinking B tier for this film at the moment. What do you reckon?
Yeah, if there was an A minus,
Yes, that'd be perfect.
okay, there.
But I just don't think I can put it on the same level as Return of the Jedi.
No, that's, yeah, so I put it like if this was an order, so maybe, I don't know if we were doing that, but let's just do it as a way to show that that's sort of in between. The Force Awakens.
Sequels.
Welcome to the sequel trilogy. The Disney era kicks in.
And now, well, I guess we'll start by saying we can sort of say a lot of the things that we said about A New Hope to this film, because plot-wise, it's very similar.
Very similar. I had a theory going after watching The Force Awakens when it came out a few times. I remember thinking, well, maybe this is their way of showing fans of Star Wars that this is what Star Wars is. After the prequels came along.
Yeah, it was sort of like a, well, they call it a soft reboot.
Soft reboot. Let's go back to what Star Wars is. Let's give you a story that you know.
And then work off from that.
And then let's give Han Solo, you know, one of the best performances that Harrison Ford's given, I think. And let's just bring it back to Star Wars. That's what I when I first watched this movie. Leading into it, I think when the trailers and all that were coming up, I can feel the level of hype for this movie.
Yep, it
was our version of episode 1.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't say the hype levels were that high for it, because I think episode 1 had the original trilogy before it, whereas this had the prequels behind it, so it kind of...
It sort of, dimmed it down a bit.
But it was one of the most anticipated movies that I've seen in my lifetime.
And you can put that to one thing I'll say about the sequels as a whole is that their trailers are just absolute fire.
Yeah.
All the trailers for these films. So their marketing is,
I must
they
have
get
watched
you
that
hyped.
trailer countless times.
That first teaser trailer when it's got Maz saying, who are you? That trailer, that thing. Must have seen that many, many, many times. So let's get into The Force Awakens in a bit more detail. So it is a soft reboot of A New Hope, unfortunately. Well, we get introduced to the sequel characters. So we're introduced to the scavenger Rey. And her mystique around who her parents are.
Yep, that was the immediate thing that people thought about after seeing this movie.
After seeing the trailers as well.
Yeah.
Who are you? Well, no one. Well, who is she? Who is she going to be? So we're introduced to Rey. We're introduced to FN2187, Finn, the defector. We're introduced to
Kylo Ren.
Who randomly, mid-movie, just in casual talk, is revealed as Ben Solo. And we're introduced to Poe Dameron, BB-8, all these new characters. So, what are some of the worlds? Jakku, which is Tatooine, basically.
Takodana, briefly.
Takodana, which is Naboo, the castle.
Starkiller Base, which is just bigger Death Star.
Bigger Death Star with Hoth covered in it. So, when you look at the prequels, the one thing I give prequels over is that they introduced new worlds like
There was
Kamino, Mustafar,
there was a lot of
Utapau.
original planets.
Whereas these ones seem to just be Tatooine, Jakku. Han Solo and Chewie, so they're basically the mentor role in this movie. So one thing you note with Star Wars trilogies, the first one always has sort of that mentor character. So we mentioned Qui-Gon was our mentor watching the movie. In episode 4 was Obi-Wan. So I guess Han sort of takes on that role in this film. Well, yeah, what are some of the positives that you've watching The Force Awakens that you enjoyed?
I think just looking at the movie general, like overall, it's like a really enjoyable movie because it's like classic Star Wars formula. So just watching the film, it's a fun movie. There's not a lot of there's no galactic politics or anything like that. We're not getting any the Senate hearings or anything like that. The action, the CG's progressed to a point where it really is just amazing.
Yeah, it's just it was 2019, so 2015, so it's pretty much got it sorted by then.
I think the new characters were introduced fairly well. Finn was he was brought in I think very strong in this movie. They sort of did set him up in a way that unfortunately I don't think saw the full potential in the rest of these movies. But man, just what we saw from him in Force Awakens is awesome.
And the marketing and trailers, he's built up as he's going to be the Jedi. When we're getting that swerve in the movie.
Rey is controversial to some.
Yes.
I was fine with her. She's a bit more of a protagonist akin to Luke, whereas the prequels sort of didn't have that type of character. Kylo Ren, I do think is an awesome character.
I think he was the strongest of the movie.
Yep.
In terms of, and it does help that Adam Driver's a good actor as well.
And I think the thing about the sequels in general is the relationship between the new characters is something I enjoyed very much.
Yeah, I think for The Force Awakens, it's done a good job of introducing the characters.
Yes.
It's just unfortunately what happens after Force Awakens that some characters just get lost, like they just lead to nothing. In terms like Finn, for example. Just a little bit on Rey. I mean,
they did sort of try to explain everything with the whole idea that she's a scavenger. She grew up toying with machines and she cleans and scavenges for parts and stuff. But
so that's how she knows everything about the Falcon.
Yeah, the Falcon, which just
it's like we
was
can
dropped
get that
in the middle of Jakku.
And miraculously, but coincidentally, it's that email post on Jakku where it raised. That's the one thing. It's just there's a lot of conveniences with the movie, but that also happened with Star Wars as well. Like, what are the odds that the battle ended over Tatooine, which led them to Luke, and then so forth. So
Yeah.
you can give that a pass.
10-year-old Luke blew up a space station by himself.
Yeah.
Which just so happened to control all the droids on the ground. And
That's right.
stuff like that happens here.
Yeah, the one thing, it's just the one scene that I'm very conflicted on with Rey is the mind trick scene.
That, yeah.
She hasn't had any training. She's been told that. I'm just trying to think the movie now. She's been told that
She wasn't even sure that
she picked the lightsaber up, and then she was told that the lightsaber was calling to her. She wanted nothing to do with it. She runs away. She ends up on Kylo's ship, getting tortured, but she manages to fend off, so that was alright. And then she's tied up, and then all of a sudden mind tricking Daniel Craig as a stormtrooper. Which, yeah, that's just, yeah. The score of the film, we got Rey's theme.
Which was an interesting one. It was different.
It was different.
For a Star Wars song.
And I'm just going to be honest, I can't really think of any other new themes The Force Awakens produced.
Well, except for the First Order.
Oh, of course, the First Order theme.
Yeah.
Kylo's theme. Yeah.
A lot of the themes were OT songs. I'm trying to think of them.
Yeah. And it was just very, there wasn't,
Like,
I think those two were the main themes that were.
Like they're not.
There was that Resistance March theme, if you remember that one, when the X-Wings are first appearing over and it's been played a bit when the Resistance are on screen in the other films, but
they because yes, that's like, it's still like really good music. It's just not as many memorable songs as the previous films.
And then we get up to the finale. So the planet's been destroyed. Oh, we didn't even talk about
The
Kylo.
yeah.
And that's the one thing you get. When I first watched it, I think I got a bit goosebumpy when Leia first appears, reunited with Han, and then interrupted by 3PO. I thought that was one of the best scenes of the movie. And that whole dynamic of Han and Leia wanting to get their son back, which is Kylo, but Snoke's taken him. So you get that mystique of who is Snoke as well. So that's another thing. Snoke was introduced, and like we said, I think the movie done a good job of introducing all the characters, including Snoke, but it's just most of them went nowhere.
Yeah, all the scene between Han and Kylo on Starkiller Base is probably still one of the strongest scenes.
Yeah.
That was, I think, probably the best way you could have sent Han Solo off.
Yeah. I mean, if this is what Harrison really, really wanted,
if they were up to him, he'd have been gone since
since
Jedi.
Froze.
Well, Frozen, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that scene was pretty powerful. To the point, and then when he finally got stabbed, then yeah, that was. Oof. I think everybody in the cinema watching it got stabbed.
There's the lightsaber fight too, which
Yep.
some people don't really like the style of the fight. I think it's kind of nice that they brought it back to the original trilogy kind of slowed down style of it. But
And if you think in story, then that would make sense.
it makes sense, yeah.
Apart from Kylo, he hasn't come across anybody with another lightsaber, so he's probably just been in his room practicing, sparring something. So he's come up against Finn, who's just, when you watch the movie, he's just swinging, and you can see Kylo's just playing with him. And then that whole reveal when Rey gets the lightsaber, the Force grab.
It's a little I don't want to say cheesy or like thing, but that moment was still like one of my favourite moments when the lightsaber flies past him and she catches it
and she had the music.
The theme kicks in. It's like, oh.
I just wish that she didn't close her eyes and the next lightsaber would lock up.
Yeah.
For 10 seconds, and Kylo just looked at her.
There's a lot of people who say like she shouldn't have beaten him or anything. It's all I can say about that is I mean, he just got shot in the gut with Chewbacca's bow.
And we've seen earlier what Chewbacca's bow does to stormtroopers. It sends them flying. And
I'm pretty sure he wasn't even trying to to kill her or anything. He's actually trying to like capture her again.
Yeah, he wanted to capture, take her to Snoke. And he also realises what she is, and he wants to train her and wants her to join. So.
And he's also just dealing with the fact that he just murdered his father, who you can see that it's already he's already filled with regret by that point.
Yep. And
So yeah,
the one thing I really wish is, I mean, obviously he would have been close to Chewbacca as well, and
Yeah.
it just sort of played up that Chewbacca. Well, you know, this is Han. He killed Han right in front of Chewie, and Chewie, without hesitation, just shot him. Well, he was screaming when he shot, which is why he just got him in the gut. So there was, you know, it's sort of weird in that the relationship between Kylo and Han, we didn't see much of it until that walkway scene, and that's all we saw of it. And we're just lucky that we've got two good actors, and the script was pretty good for it.
and then of course the only other part of this film we haven't talked about is the ending, the very end.
Ahch-To.
Yep.
Well, that too.
Where we see.
Well, before that, R2 wakes up.
Oh
With the
yeah,
map.
that was.
Very convenient. Don't really think about it, I guess. That there's this blank map that Poe had. He got it from that old man on Jakku as a starter, so that's, anyway. And then it fits right into R2's slot. And I'm just going off memory, but if I'm remembering the map slot that fits in place, there's only one planet on the slot anyway, so
Yeah, it's like.
could they not just
Couldn't have just searched around that area of the missing bit
and
of the
find
map?
the one planet called Ahch-To and there's Luke? But anyway, that's just, like I said, don't think about it too much. So yeah, we get the reveal of Luke. What did you think when you were watching that?
I didn't want the movie to end. I knew it was about to end. And I'm like, no, they cannot leave us on this. But that's one way to get your attention for the second film.
Yeah. It ended on a real cliffhanger. If you look at the other Star Wars movies, I mean, Empire ended on a cliffhanger. Han was there. They were in shambles. Episode 2 ended on a cliffhanger, so yeah, it's nothing out of the ordinary. So that's Force Awakens.
Me personally, if I was ranking this myself, I wouldn't feel out of place putting this in the lower A tier. That's what I feel.
I agree. I think it's just that level above Episode 3 to push it up to A tier.
Yeah,
It
it's
brought
just
us
a
back,
better,
like I said, it drew us back to Star Wars,
it's a better overall structured movie.
and it's a better production-wise put together film. And now,
Here comes probably the most controversial film.
one thing we didn't talk about, the new lightsaber for Kylo, I was just looking at it. The new crossblade sword, which was controversial at the start, but speaking of controversy, The Last Jedi. How are we travelling? We'll just speed it up a bit.
So what do you think? Do you
Oh,
are
The
you a
Last
fan of this
Jedi.
movie, or are you still sort of conflicted on it?
It's. I think I'm a fan of the movie. Is it the movie that I wanted it to be? No. But for the movie that we got, I think it's watchable. I'd watch it. I'll sit through and watch it. The whole dynamic, so it explores the dynamics between Rey and Kylo.
Yes,
Establishes that.
the end and the Force.
It's Rey wanting to learn off Luke, and that's the thing with this movie. Like, I think Luke Skywalker is my favourite character for Star Wars, and I'm on the camp that I don't really feel what he did during The Last Jedi would fit what Luke is about. And I know there's
It was a ballsy move to go with this.
yeah, I know there's two sides of that argument. I think Luke would have been a bit more heroic, or a bit more. I think his character would be a bit more that he would want to do something and try to fix what he would see as his mistake, basically. Whereas in this one, it's sort of he's just cut himself off the force, which is it was a bit hard for me to punch that, but yeah, I guess. What's your general thoughts on the Last Jedi?
Yeah, I came out of the theaters liking it. I thought about it a little bit, and I actually sort of came back to it that I sort of didn't like what they did with the direction of it and stuff. But over time, with rewatches, I've come sort of back around to appreciate it a bit more now. I do feel that certain things like the comedy in the film don't quite hit the spot as probably intended.
A bit out of place.
A little bit out of place, yeah. Some of the what's her name, Holdo.
Yeah, Holdo.
I was not a fan of that character, because even if it's just like, I don't know. I still don't really understand what she
The
was
whole
doing.
secret
Not telling the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Why? I don't understand why it has to be a big secret. I mean, they're all rebels trying to survive the First Order,
Who is currently on them?
who is currently advancing with speed in a much bigger ship.
It's a wonder they didn't just like let Poe just go and fly and just try to do something and just get shot down.
And yeah, if that's right, if she wanted him gone, then say go fight him. That's the other biggest gripe I have about The Last Jedi in relation to The Force Awakens. So you can, obviously it is a different director and a different direction that it was taking, but for me the biggest thing I don't understand is the strength of the First Order. So we're meant to believe that the First Order was this small little remnant of the Empire hiding on Starkiller Base, who has a win by blowing up
The
Hosnian
New Republic.
Prime, New Republic, not Coruscant, that one, and apparently that blew up all the Republic fleet as well. So by the time that The Last Jedi comes along, they're at full Empire across the galaxy strength. And The Last Jedi picks up immediately following Force Awakens, so
And it
just no,
it
I don't
hits
know,
you with
yeah.
that swerve right at the
It
very
just
beginning.
hits you the swerve that they're the Empire again, and they're back to being, and that's the other thing, that they're just back to being the rebels again. Like,
Yeah.
I feel that was a step backwards.
I can definitely say a positive about the film is it's probably one of the most visually stunning of probably the entire saga, and it's just got a number of like great shots. There's a lot of like little moments in particular, like stuff like Kylo marching into the Crate base, how it mirrors the shot of Anakin marching into the Jedi Temple, stuff, little callbacks like that I appreciate.
The cinematography of this movie is probably the best in the saga.
This,
Even the promotional posters.
Yeah.
I think they're just some A+ level stuff.
There are just so many moments that would just make like a perfect wallpaper of some sort, you know, where it's Luke standing at the entrance of the Crate base, or Luke standing across from Kylo out on the field.
So let's talk about the Luke projection thing.
Yes. It's I'll mention something in the next movie about that. It was cool to see a a Jedi power like that, because we hadn't seen anything like it before. I'm trying to recall if we have though.
Not a projection, anything like that.
No, and
Not in the movies, at least. But then I don't know about Clone Wars.
there's a lot of EU as well that
There's a lot of EU.
we probably just haven't come across yet, but I like the subtle details in the confrontation that give away the fact that he's not really there. Stuff like not leaving footprints,
Yeah,
not actually making contact with his lightsaber.
which you don't actually notice when you're watching it.
No, like I didn't notice it on first watch at all, and it was just cool seeing Luke do little like Jedi twirls and stuff.
Yeah, that was, I thought, a bit odd at first. Like, we don't usually see Luke doing that, but at the same time, cool. The thing that I noticed when we first watched it is that he was holding his lightsaber.
Yes.
So I didn't understand what was happening then, so that was
He had
really
the-
confusing at first watch.
He had the blue
Yeah.
saber, which I think is just they probably did that just to show that the amount of focus Kylo loses
Yeah,
in that moment, and he doesn't even notice that.
doesn't even notice that. And he's also, the one thing I didn't notice at first watch is he is younger. Haircut, but it's something I noticed. We got a look at Yoda again.
Yeah, that
Jedi
was not, I
Temple.
love that scene.
That scene was very Empire Strikes Back. Yoda's telling Luke that, trying to remind him, pass on the knowledge.
We haven't brought up Canto Bight, but
Oh, I can't wait.
it is what it is.
I mean, we were just saying before, like, it doesn't introduce new worlds, so I guess that was
a cool planet though.
we've never seen a casino before in
No.
Star Wars, so that was actually cool. But the whole point of the why they're there does make sense. But
It was what it is. I didn't think it was the.
we got Rose Tico. She makes a cameo in this Rise of Skywalker.
Cameo. Screen time
Um,
limited to cameo appearance.
Rose.
Yeah. So there's definitely some misses in this film.
Yeah.
There's also some hits.
The death of Luke. This is where that movie that took place. So we're talking about the projection. Took all of his force. So for what they set up in the movie, it makes sense. I mean, he's cut himself off of the force, and for something to project himself so far across the galaxy is going to take a lot of energy out of
He's
him.
just come back to it, and
So as much as I hated it, I guess, it does make sense that that will be his demise, and he sacrificed himself in the end to save the group. So
and he did it without using force. Like, I'm not talking the force, but he didn't come out swinging a lightsaber until he would couldn't know more or anything like that.
until he just distracted Kylo long enough, and he knew Kylo would feed into it, to the point when Kylo realizes that he's not actually there, and
Yeah, I think that was a very Jedi. Way
the
to go
see
about it.
around kid. And then Kylo turning to realizes that they're gone, and then the death happens straight after that. So like, oh no. Yeah, The Last Jedi. It's definitely a long movie as well. The longest of the series, I think. So, where would you put it?
I wouldn't.
I'm gonna say I'm not gonna go to episode 2 for The Last Jedi.
No.
I'm not gonna drop it down on that one.
I think where we place it now could even change in the future, because with a lot of the series that we're getting now with Disney Plus, I think it's going to shape up the events before it that lead to everything being the way it is a lot better. But in its current state, I do kind of enjoy the movie to a B, but I would feel fine putting it in C tier. Like, in my brain,
Yeah.
I'd probably give it like a C plus.
I'll go see. I mean, it was bold. It's the boldest of the Star Wars movies. It's not the type of movie that I wanted, but for what we got, it's what we
Yeah,
got.
for everything they said about Episode 7 just being a a soft reboot. Episode 8 was like the complete opposite of
The
that. So
complete opposite.
can
which
appreciate it for that.
you appreciate it, and then you're gonna please everybody. Episode 9.
Oh,
I'm gonna be honest. Episode 9 was hard to watch because we got episode 7. Episode 8 came along and took it in a new direction, and episode 9 was just like
whipped it right back.
Control Alt Z, replay, repeat, undo.
It's really all I can say about episode 9 is it's a bit of a clusterfuck, isn't it?
It's frustrating. It's just frustrating. Like,
there's a lot of ideas that they threw into this film, and
it's in detail.
yeah, it's
frustrating. Like, oh,
I will say, the music in this film, I think, is probably the best of the sequels. We've got a lot of classic themes. It sort of did feel like the finale to the saga, which is what I suppose it should have been doing for the fact that it's episode 9. And I mean, for the saga that's had the highs and lows that it has, I'm fine with the ending being just a crazy planet hopping. Yeah.
But the thing, we didn't even really talk much about Snoke in The Last Jedi.
That's
ended. So we're coming in episode 9 and Palpatine's alive. No build up.
I did have problem with it at first, but the way I look at it now is it does sort of tie the movies in a way that, you know, he's there at the very beginning and the end.
Yeah, that's JJ's way of tying all the sagas together.
Yeah.
But like I said, no warning whatsoever. As soon as you read the opening crawl, like, oh, he's back. Okay.
I will bring up this about Rise of Skywalker. What I said I was going to bring it up when we talked about Last Jedi. With you know, you see in Last Jedi that Luke's X-wing, it's submerged in the water. It's probably been there for probably a decade or so. There's like, we just assume, okay, it probably is not going to work anymore. And so, episode 9 gives us the Yoda X-wing lift, which it straight up uses Yoda's music.
It's just the Empire Strikes Back scene.
And there's the ship fine and dandy. So it's like, why didn't Luke just, you know, after he reconnected to the Force, just lift the X-wing out himself and fly there and help help in a different way? But
I have issues with a lot of things in this film. The other thing is that this is a nerdy issue, so it sets up that to get to Exegol, which is not Korriban, so that's the thing that annoys the hell out of me. Korriban has always been the home of the Sith. It was renamed to Moraban in the Clone Wars, and now it's Exegol. This is Sith world, but anyway, that's beside the point. It was set up that to get there you need to have hyperdrive, but in the end of the movie, Kylo used a TIE fighter from the Death Star to get to Exegol. TIE fighters back in those eras didn't have hyperdrives because they were small fighters.
Also, you could mention the fact that when the fleet of you know, just the people arrive, how many of those ships would have hyperdrives? And
and I don't know about you, but what did you think of the Kylo? What are you doing?
Yeah, that's my comment. That's what I thought. Nothing.
Yes, look, it's just an absolute mess of a movie.
It's like and yeah, there's a lot of unfortunate circumstances around it with Carrie Fisher. She was originally supposed to play a really big part in this movie, and I really would have liked to see what that would have looked like. But that's just something that you can't control.
And I mean, you know, one way I would have looked at it, it's, you know, the way that they did those deleted scenes where they looked good, they looked like, you know, they were part of the movie. Some of them seemed a bit out of place, with what she was saying and how it's in relation to everything else that was happening.
Yeah.
But, you know, one ways they could have done it is, you know, it would have been probably unpopular, but if they killed her off in between movies, say that she was attacked by a, I don't know, First Order attack or something, and that'd be the, you know, they say it a lot in that movie, the spark that lights the fire. That could have been cool, a cool concept. We were introduced to the original Bad Batch of Stormtroopers. Janna. Lando makes a comeback.
Yeah.
Um,
I can think of a few things that I did actually really like in this movie. I touched upon it in Force Awakens, and that I really like the chemistry of the three main characters.
yeah,
I think it's the strongest in this film.
it's something we didn't see last film really, but
Yeah, because they were
They-
all apart.
all the time, but they really brought it in, and even you get those the main characters, and then you add C-3PO in there as well.
Yeah,
We
It's
finally
probably-
get 3PO
probably
back.
3PO's best movie, if I'm being honest.
Because and if I'm being honest, I don't remember 3PO at all in The Last Jedi. I know he was on the bridge and he runs when they try to break him, but
The lightsaber fight on the Death Star ruins. What did you think of that?
I think being for what it was meant to be, the big climatic lightsaber battle, this is the thing that the movies build up to. I think was a letdown.
It had its moments, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was no Obi-Wan Anakin.
No,
It was no Duel of the Fates.
and it was in silence. Like there was no music.
I thought that was really weird.
That was odd.
That
But-
needed a score.
They did the ambience of the waves crashing.
It
It's like, oh,
you can sort of look at it in a way that it's kind of like the where they're fighting at least kind of mirrors Anakin and Obi-Wan in that they're fighting over water where they fought around lava. But it really did need music, and it was kind of weird to see like Stamina actually take part in a fight, but the scene with Leia where she connects to Kylo one more time as she passes.
that's
That was I kind of did like that.
yeah. I think that was one of the better. That's the one thing that we never really explored is the relationship between Kylo and his mother. We've never really seen that fleshed out. I'm thinking that maybe was one that would have been had Carrie not
Yeah,
pass away. If she was in the film, maybe that got it fleshed out a bit more.
she maybe would have been given the part that Harrison Ford ended up with his cameo appearance in this film.
And the cameo.
I did really like that scene, but it kind of felt weird seeing him again after
Yeah.
we thought we'd see the last of him.
I know there are certain people who much have preferred Anakin to appear in that scene,
I can see
which
it
you
too,
can see, you know.
but at the same time, it's like
And
I'm
there
not
was-
sure what the established rules of the Force Ghosts are. Like, do you actually have to have known them to do it?
to appear.
Yeah, you never see a Force Ghost talking to like a new character.
And there was rumours that his Force Ghost would actually be fractured in between the lightness and the darkness, which I think that would have been weird, considering he redeemed himself already.
He's already appeared as a Force Ghost.
So I thought lucky they didn't go with that. But yeah, just to see Han, just an average, you know, as much as Han is, you know, an awesome character, but he's just a man, appears, it's just a bit weird.
Speaking of cameos, can't lie, I did really love that scene when we get all the voices of the Jedi. It was fun listening, making out who you could hear
Who
when
you
the
could
first
hear.
time I saw it in the cinema.
I thought that was awesome.
I got real excited when I heard Qui-Gon's voice because I think out of a lot of the Jedi, he he actually has like close to the most dialogue. He says like 2 or 3
I
lines.
think him, and the other one that had the most was randomly Kanan Jarrus from Rebels, who had
They got
quite a lot to say. So
they
I
got
think,
voices
that's
from
nice.
everything, like Rebels, Clone Wars.
All the Jedi's.
Yeah, that was
I think Kanan's line was
something about
power of the Force
heart of the something
Yeah.
lies in their strength.
lies in their strength.
Something along the lines of that.
And he got a very prominent voice in it too, so that was cool. I have seen YouTube edits. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube edits
Yep.
of that scene, and then the scene when she lights the lightning back at Palpatine in the background of the Force Ghosts.
Yep.
If that happened in the movie, I think I would have stood up and applauded. But yeah. Okay, let's move on from the Rise of Skywalker because I think we've said enough about that.
Actually, while we're moving on, I will quickly show
It is
this cool photo I have.
okay. We'll bring that up. Well, the one thing, what we should probably just make a brief mention on is the movie that we didn't get that could have been. So Colin Trevorrow was signed to make episode 9. He had a script, he had a story ready to go. It was going to be called Duel of the Fates. It was going to be about heroes going. They were going to go to Coruscant. They were going to do their bit to gather the rebels, the resistance again.
That's some artwork I found on Twitter. I don't have the artist's name on me right now, but it's a photo of Rey with all the Jedi behind her. You can see pretty much everyone that we mentioned, plus others.
So yeah, I think that would have been an interesting movie, that having them go and build the resistance up again, which is what I thought we were going to be getting. But by the time the Rise of Skywalker comes around, the resistance seems pretty well off.
Yeah, I've heard some good things and some bad things about that script, because apparently basically the script has come out and it's got some cool stuff, but also some weird stuff. Like there was supposedly a romance between Rey and Poe, which sounds kind of out of nowhere.
Out of left field. Yeah, so I think Colin Trevorrow would have been an interesting choice. Although he will be helming Jurassic World Dominion, so that's why he dropped out, I believe. Rogue One. First of the spin-offs. And I'm going to say I think Rogue One is actually a pretty good damn movie.
It's I think it's a really solid movie. The only negative things I can say about it is I just wasn't a big fan of the characters. That's all I can say. I just didn't feel like you could really emotionally connect with them by the time of the finale.
And I mean, this movie is made off the basis of one line of Crawl in episode 4. Stealing the Death Star plans. So we've got a big ensemble cast led by Jyn Erso, who's this sort of outcast.
She's I kind of look at Jyn as kind of like another version of Rey, just less important in the grand scheme of Star Wars.
Yeah, because really she was the one to motivate the rebels into doing this thing, to trying to push it, but it was everybody else that sort of also had equal parts. So
yeah,
you can see that they're Rogue One. That's their call sign. They're equally as important, leading into the Death Star destruction. So they're instrumental in that, but as we know, that the Empire just built another Death Star within a year anyway, so that's that. But some of the good things, I think it's a good war movie.
they
shines away from that Jedi.
yes, there's no Jedi in the film.
No.
There's hints of the Force with I
yeah,
forgot his
that
name.
guy. I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me.
Yeah, but there's just no actual Jedi in the film. Vader's in the film, but
And that hallway scene was, that's pretty cool, that hallway scene.
but no like hero like Jedi to be there in the film.
Yeah, which I thought that's probably what this movie needed, because
Yeah.
this is set before episode 4, before the Jedi came back. So if you had a Jedi in there, that would be like, I think Scarif is a beautiful world.
Yep, Scarif.
Beautiful tropical world.
Is it the first sort of beach planet? Like us, obviously Kashyyyk has like a beach,
Yeah.
but it's not really. It's more like a
Doesn't-
jungle rather
yeah.
than a tropical.
Doesn't look like a tropical paradise.
No.
And I can't think of any other, except for probably a planet on Knights of the Old Republic, where we've seen like a tropical beach, so that was cool to see. The Shadow Troopers, they look amazing. Well, the Death Troopers, they are. That's one of the problem is with Star Wars movies as well, though, when you get prequels that come along, they add new things.
Yes.
It just sort of leaves the original trilogy behind, like with those new Death Troopers and all the new stuff that we get in these
It's like where were
spin-offs.
they?
Where were they? You'd think that the Death Troopers would be the ones guarding the Emperor, but that's just what happens. It's just timing of it. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie. It is what it needed to be. It's a good spin-off. We knew none of the characters were going to survive, but that they made the ultimate sacrifice to beam the planes up.
Yeah, I don't know if that sort of has anything to do with my problem of it, where obviously they're not going to survive, but there's no other movie that has that about it, so I think that's that makes it stand out by far.
There's just one scene that really, really bugs me in this movie is when when they first go to to the Imperial base where her dad is, and what's his name? Cassian has to go and assassinate him, but he doesn't end up shooting him, so it goes back, and then for some reason Jin verbally assaults him for I don't understand how to explain it. So he goes to shoot him, but he doesn't shoot him, so he comes back, and then Jin verbally attacks him for going up there to shoot him, but he said that I didn't follow my orders, and then Jin it's just, what is she mad at?
There's a whole thing too of like the drive that they steal the plans on. It's like they couldn't have just like told them, you can shoot the port that's in the trench.
Yeah, it just sent a message, shoot the port in the trench, and
Because
then beam it straight up.
when you look at the like the plans in like A New Hope, because they couldn't really do anything else for like computer graphics to demonstrate it, but it's just a little image of a thing going into a port. It's like they're not going to learn much from that.
No, it's not named or anything, so yeah. But yeah, I think Director Krennic's actually a pretty cool character, and I think I'm just thinking that because I like the actor who plays him. Good Aussie bloke who plays Director Krennic, now whose name is absolutely gone from my mind. And Jin's dad, played by that guy.
What's his name?
Who's Le Chiffre in Casino Royale.
Royale.
He's a really good actor. He's the new
What's his name? Like Mads something?
Mads Mikkelsen,
Mikkelsen, that's it.
and Ben Mendelsohn is Orson Krennic. I think they were cool characters. Obviously both don't. No one survives in this movie, but that's not what the movie's about. So for Rogue One, for me,
I'd probably leave this one up to you because I feel like my ranking would probably be a bit lower than what you'd put. So I'll see what you say.
I'm going B tier.
Yeah.
For what it is, it's a good military action movie telling the story of this ragtag group of rebels to steal the plans of the Death Star. So it told that story. That's the story it told. That's what it was about. That's all it was meant to be. it wasn't meant to have any big impact on the rest of the story or anything. So for that standalone, what it is, I think it would fit probably there. Solo.
Solo. I enjoyed Solo. I think it's just like a fun, like sort of adventure film. It's not trying to be like, obviously they do try to touch base on a lot of like the things we hear about Han Solo from the original trilogy. It does sort of go through them all like some sort of checklist, but yeah, I don't know. I thought it was just fun. Like the action was fun. Some of the music was pretty good. Well, the fact that we got to hear the asteroid chase theme again.
Yeah, that's right. We had that in The Last Jedi as well.
It also sort of teased a few things that we've yet to get a follow up on, like Darth Maul just
Oh, Star Wars.
I like some of the grittier looks at some of the planets, like Corellia,
Kessel.
Kessel.
Finally get to see Kessel and the Kessel Run, which was finally explained in this movie.
What it is.
What it is.
what it means to do it in under 12 parsecs. I liked what was his name? Woody Harrelson's character.
Woody Harrelson. Can't remember his name of the character.
How he acted as his mentor, but in the end he used his own advice to outlast him.
Best him.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems I have. I mean, a lot of these characters' names I just don't know. Like, apart from the main ones. There's him. There's the girl.
Kira.
Oh, Kira.
With a
that's
Q.
right. And then there's Jarvis, the Vision. Yeah, him. His little trophy room was a room full of Easter eggs though.
Yep.
That was pretty cool. He's got a Sith holocron in there. He's got the crystal skull from Indiana Jones.
Lando was an interesting take on him. Don't know about that droid of his, but
the droid with the most unique walking style of any droid in the galaxy, I believe.
The droid with the most defined hips for no reason whatsoever.
That's the one thing I'll give this movie is that when you watch it, you don't. When I watched it, I didn't think of Harrison Ford at all, or Billy D. Williams. I thought of them. Oh, that's Han Solo. I thought of him as Lando, which is good credit to the actors. So
yeah, they got a lot of the.
He was pretty good.
They got a lot of the slights and mannerisms down, without being too like forcive.
Yeah. So it obviously allows room for it to develop as the years go on. And like you said, it did leave a lot of doors open for what I believe. I think they did plan to do a sequel to it, but the reception of it, would have stopped on that. Which is unfortunate because I would have liked to see some loose ends be tied on it, but who knows, we might get another Disney Plus series down the track that ties up a lot of that stuff. I know we're getting a Cassian.
Yeah, that's been
Rogue One prequel.
That shouldn't be too far away. I'm fairly sure.
So that might line up with that timeline. So, but as far as Solo goes,
see, I sort of think it's around. In terms of like enjoyment factor, I sort of enjoyed about as much as I enjoyed Rogue One.
That's the thing with the spin-off. They're both fun movies to watch, like.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that they're spin-offs, so you go into the movie with the mindset that it's not going to have an impact on the whole franchise as a whole. So I feel like you kind of lower your expectations.
Yeah.
And that helps it. Like when you go into watching something like Last Jedi, Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, and expectations through the roof. I'm going to put it above Rogue One, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'd take Solo over Rogue One.
This is the Clone Wars movie.
I'll just say it now. Throw it in D tier.
Yeah,
It's literally just 3 episodes of the TV show stuck together. That's literally what it feels like.
it's a pilot.
It had
It's got Jabba's son.
it introduced Ahsoka.
Oh, and it introduced Ahsoka Tano, one of the better characters outside of the films.
Yeah, after a bit of development.
Definitely after a lot of development in the Clone Wars. So by the time she gets to Rebels and Mando.
Only positive things I can say is they managed to bring back Christopher Lee and Samuel L. Jackson to do the voices, so that was
That's
cool.
always a win.
But this is probably the only Star Wars film I will not rewatch. There's just no point to it. I'm pretty sure they...
what was Jabba's sister's name?
I don't remember.
Oh, but that was weird.
I don't want to.
It was weird looking.
I'm pretty sure the arc that they go in that movie sort of... They touch on it again in the TV show, so... Like, I definitely know they go to that planet that battle is on in the poster.
So, leave it there. But the Clone Wars series, I feel that's a different story.
Clone Wars...
I've seen... Well, with that, there's... How many seasons are there? There's
7.
7. I've seen the first 4.
There's 6, and then the 7th one was the final one
6
from
and 1.
about a year ago, 2 years ago.
So I've seen the first 4 seasons. That's the only ones I've watched.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of... it grows up a lot in the first couple of seasons.
Season 5 really it takes it up like 5 notches. Season 6 is a lot shorter because I think that was their first attempt at like finalizing the series, and season 7 is just a whole nother story. That was something else. But what I can say about Clone Wars is I like it. A lot of people probably put it as their favourite show, non-movie. It had the task of putting all the missing pieces together of the Clone Wars and patching up that gap between episode 2 and 3, and I would have to say I guess give some of the characters a bit of a better representation, to the point where some people even prefer the show versions of them to the movies. The first few seasons are pretty slow. You can tell it's sort of just like they're sort of just testing the waters with it as just a kid's show.
Just a kid's show with no...
Yeah, there's some things that happen, but season 4 and 5 is where it really picks up. I don't recall too much happening in season 6 that was too dramatic, but season 7, the final 4 episodes, they're a must-watch. Like any Star Wars fan, like you could put those 4 episodes together as one movie, practically, and it's some of the best TV show content out there. But overall,
I mean, and there's a lot of content with it as well.
Yes.
Like 7 seasons and...
As good as it is, like the highs are, there is a lot of filler.
Yes.
And the format of the show is something I'll never understand. They jump from arc to arc, and it's some of it is like out of order.
Yes.
To the point where fans came up with an actual timeline to watch them.
And there's some of the episodes in the middle. I know even the seasons that I've watched, the first 4 seasons, I'm pretty sure season 4 started with something that goes right back before the movie, so it does that.
That said, one of my favourite arcs in the whole series is literally just a silly side story about these droids that go to this planet called Abafar, and they're like, I think the episode's called A Sunny Day in the Void. Apparently it's George Lucas's favourite episode, or like favourite series too. Like it has nothing to do with any of the other characters. It's just these stupid droids doing stupid things. But yeah, I don't know why. It was just, for some reason, that's one of the most memorable moments of the show for me.
And it does also run that danger zone with so much content.
Yes.
It's
it kind of affects episode 3 in the end.
It affects episode 3 in the end, and it also, it's like 8. No, what would we say? 7 or 8 seasons
which
crammed into 3 years. It's meant to be 3 years of Clone Wars.
which season 7 did try to acknowledge and work around, but yeah, it does get to the point where it's a bit much for what we know.
And yeah. So Clone Wars.
Clone Wars, I think I'm stuck between B and possibly like a very low A, because the highs are amazing, but the stuff in the middle is just pretty meh.
But then again, you could also, like you said, you get some non-stuff that are pretty fun as well.
Yeah.
As a plus, so. I mean, you've seen all of it, so
Yep.
I'll let you place this one.
I think we can put the Clone Wars at the top of B, so in front of
Ren doesn't want to move the spot.
I'm happy
Yep.
with that.
That's good. This one's going D because that doesn't matter anymore.
OG Clone Wars. I've got both volumes on DVD, but I still haven't watched them yet, so I can't even comment on them anyways.
Well, I remember watching them over time when I was younger. I used to have them on DVD and back before Clone Wars was a thing, so that gave us the idea. Well, I don't even know if you want to hear much of it if you haven't watched it. But it's non-canon anyway, so it doesn't matter. It shows us like Grievous stealing Palpatine and how Grievous got his cough as Mace Windu crushed his chest.
I have seen that scene before.
But it does have, what's her name there? There's a few things from this series that carried over. Yeah, to the 3D Clone Wars, but
They got the same
what it is,
same voice actor for everyone.
yeah, it's not even a canon thing.
Yep.
The Bad Batch.
Bad Batch.
So I've seen that.
I have not finished watching it.
Yeah.
I liked what I saw. I've only seen about the first 4 episodes. It was like it felt like a not larger scale as in the story, but as in like how long the episodes and like the storytelling's getting better. It just felt like a larger scale Clone Wars.
And it felt, it feels like it's, well, they've had how much practice at the Clone Wars, so
Yeah.
they seem to perfected their storytelling and their even the animation and all that in the Bad Batch, and it's just it's a pretty straightforward story. It's the story of a group of mutant clones, so to speak. But for what it is, I think it's pretty good. I'm thinking the B tier,
Yeah, this one's all you.
but I'm probably gonna put it just back a bit, because as cool as the clones are, that's all it's about. I'll put it there. Yeah, just leave it there. Rebels.
Rebels. Here's my hot take with Rebels. I enjoyed it more than Clone Wars.
I watched Rebels before I watched Clone Wars, like all of it, and yeah.
I think it benefits hugely from being keeping the same group of characters and just having a consistent story.
Yeah.
And some of the most of the late season stuff that happened throughout each of them is it's always something big. Just the relationship and the growth between the characters is I think it's just much better than what we got in Clone Wars.
I would agree. It's by scaling back the size of the characters and the storylines, it really benefits, and it really lets us focus on these guys here. So whereas Clone Wars can sometimes just throw in random stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, that droid storyline, which was good, but Rebels is a bit more consistent. And I think that just also comes, like, they've had years of practice on Clone Wars, so I think they've taken that and applied it to Rebels in a small scale. And I like I said, I watched Rebels entirely before I watched the first 4 seasons of Clone Wars, so I think I liked it better.
I can honestly think I liked it to the point where I'd be putting it in low A tier.
Yeah.
It's just
It's also got that. So it's got that post Clone Wars Jedi sort of thing
yeah.
leading into episode 4.
It does start
It's got
off
that
very very slow, but once it gets going, it's great.
When it picks up, it really picks up.
Yeah.
Force of Destiny, I've done nothing.
I don't know why this is even here. They're like 2-minute videos on YouTube.
So we're not even going to drag it up because it's not even a D, so we haven't even seen it. Mando.
Ooh. Mando.
The hottest thing going in Star Wars right now.
Yep. So Mando seasons 1 and 2.
1 and 2. Season 1
I thought season
was
1
very
was fresh and original.
fresh and original. Season 2 we're starting to get into Clone Wars territory, I feel.
Well, yeah, when we're well past that era,
We're starting to
bring back characters.
and from Clone Wars, and then also we're getting into that Clone Wars like production wise thing where everything's happening.
Everything. That's because it does make for some good show, some good TV, but it also comes a bit like now it's this character's turn to come back, and now it's this character's coming back.
It is getting towards that. But you go back to season 1, and when it's focusing on Mando and the child.
Yeah, like
I think that's the best part of the show.
I gotta say, overall, as cool as the moments that we get in season 2, I probably liked season 1 better.
Yeah.
Just because it told a much simpler story.
It's a simple story.
That was
outlaw.
separate from everything else.
Yeah. The production value of this show, also, it's one of the best looking TV. It's a TV show, and it looks like it's a multi-billion-dollar blockbuster film. And the way that they do the sets and all that is just it's just watching something
technology
visually
now.
pleasing. So I think for me, Mando's going up here. Where would you put it?
I'd probably put it in A tier.
Top A?
AS, wherever you feel comfortable putting it.
Because I just feel that Mandalorian, it's just...
It was the
I don't
freshest thing we'd had in a while.
It's fresh, it's new. Season 2, it's starting to go into other areas, but at the same time that it's doing that, it's like kind of want to see where it goes.
It's it all just comes back to Dave Filoni, I guess. What he's doing with Star Wars.
If this was a top A, it's realistically it's like this. I'm not looking at Visions. I've seen all the Visions.
I actually haven't watched it yet, and I was actually very keen to do it. I just lost time to do it, and I haven't revisited it.
Well, in short, I'll skip it short because it's not really a canon thing. It's good for what it is. The purpose of it is just to showcase different styles of animations applied in the Star Wars universe. That's what it's about.
Like, it's a cool concept.
It's a cool concept. The downside to that is that some of the episodes are like so cool that you just want to see more of it, but that's all it is. I'd probably go A.
Yeah.
And the Book of Boba Fett.
Ooh. That show, for me, it's basically Mando season 2. It suffers the same sort of problems.
There's a whole episode just got
that doesn't even feature him. It's just a Mandalorian episode. That's what I mean. Like Boba Fett takes a backseat a
In
lot
his own show.
in his own show. It starts off like really good, but like the Tusken Raider stuff.
Oh, that Tusken Raider stuff is probably some of the best.
That was like Mando season 1 type
Yeah,
stuff.
I really loved all the Tusken Raider stuff with that.
But then here comes Luke, here comes Ahsoka,
Yeah.
here comes Mando,
And
here
who would
comes
have thought we'd seen Luke Skywalker again training Grogu?
here comes the
In
child.
Boba Fett.
It's Boba Fett. It's I don't know how I feel about the show. Like,
And those two episodes came right in the middle of the series, so it sort of derails it. And then the last episode, which is episode 7, comes after that little side story with Mandalorian. So you're already forgetting that, Boba Fett's on Tatooine looking to reclaim his throne and get rid of those people who are from Solo.
yeah, so it's like
It's like, that's what's happening.
yes, it's all cool, but it just feels a bit out of place. Some of the stuff.
It's not as consistent as Mandalorian.
No.
But with that said, Boba Fett, Tamara Morrison, with the stuff that he's in, like when it just focuses on Boba Fett and what it is meant to be, that stuff is really good.
Yeah.
But it's just not consistent enough to hold that. But I would put it here. Maybe end here.
Yeah.
It's just too it's the book of Boba Fett. He gets his show hijacked off him. It turns into this show. It's just too disjointed.
Yeah.
But with that said, the stuff that does focus on him and the story that they're telling is trying to, take over Jabba the Hutt's throne and all that. He's trying to make a name for himself again after it being literally stripped away of him. When it focuses on that, it's really good. Like, it keeps you watching with him, but it just gets too off track as it goes on.
It really if it weren't for the fact that there's such a heavy focus on him in the first half of the show, it could have just been Mandalorian season 3.
And in all honesty, we could have waited for Mandalorian season 3 to see all that stuff with Grogu and all that.
Yeah, I don't. What's the point of including it there? Just save it for that show.
Waited for that show. If someone comes in now watching Mandalorian 1, 2, 3, by the time they get to season 3, and if they haven't seen Boba Fett, they'll be like, Grogu's back.
Something's missing, yeah.
What's happening here? So that's where that disjointed just really hurts it.
Yeah.
And that's the list.
Because we have not watched Resistance.
I've not watched Resistance, and
I've watched a couple episodes of it because I wanted to just. It's only 2 seasons, so I thought I wanted to just try and just watch it through so I can say I have, but I just have not revisited it.
Well, that's our tier list. That's 2 hours of us giving you our thoughts on the Star Wars saga, collection, whatever it's called now, series, franchise. That's where we've ranked them. So maybe a few controversial spots there, but pretty happy with the way that's laid out right now. So I guess this also, in turn, is pretty much also mini reviews of all the films and what we thought of it as well. So it's good that we're able to come through and just talk about these things again. But that's our tier maker of the Star Wars films and TV shows that we've seen as part of the Festival of Star Wars here on the channel. Hope you enjoyed. If you'd like to give a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more Star Wars content. But for now, it's thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.